Hi, I'm Jess, and tonight we're going to make lasagna. This is my mother's recipe, and it is quite delicious. Let's start with the cheese. First off, I'm going to take the ricotta, put it in here, all 16 ounces of it. This will be the base of our cheese. Doesn't look too appetizing right now, but it will. Next, I'm going to take a 1/4 cup of parmesan. Get a nice heaping 1/4 cup of that. Put it right in there. Depending on how I feel, I might add more later. I'm going to stir that right in. And what the parmesan is going to make the ricotta do is it's going to get a little firmer, less soupy. It's going to be more like a paste than a mush, I suppose. So stir that right up in there. And we're going to, oh, check out that thunder. We're going to need, let me consult my recipe book. We're going to need a tablespoon of dried parsley flakes. So here I've got my parsley. There we go. It's about a tablespoon. Put that right in there. And we're going to need a 1½ teaspoons of salt. I know I'm not very exact with my measurements, but you should be. It's about 1½ teaspoons of salt. And some oregano. We're going to need 1½ teaspoons of that. So let me open up this oregano here. It's about a 1/2 teaspoon. There we go. All right, we're going to mix all that right in there. Now comes the fun part. We're going to put the actual lasagna together. And this, if you've ever, have childhood memories of playing with Play-Doh and making mud pies and getting your hands dirty, you'll love this part because it's very hands-on. We're going to start by taking our ungreased pan, and we're going to take our sheets of lasagna, which I've cut into strips. Should be 15 strips in all. And we're going to lay the first one down right there so it's flush against the edge. And we're just going to cover the bottom of the pan like so with the sheets of lasagna so that they should touch but still be separate. I'm going to put 3 of them right on there. They overlap a little bit, but that's okay. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take my family's recipe of sauce, which I made earlier, and we're going to stick some of it on there, just a little bit on each. We're going to smooth it out so it makes sort of a layer like that. Already making me hungry. On each one of the strips. Lasagna is essentially a stackable food, so this is all about building layers, like an onion. And you might notice there's a storm going on outside. This is a really fun activity to do on a rainy day, I think. I always think food is a fun activity. All right, so I've got my first layer of sauce in the pasta. Next thing I want to do is I want to take the cheese mixture that we made earlier of ricotta, parmesan, parsley, oregano, and salt. And I want to take a little bit of that, and I want to do the same thing right over the sauce. Not too much, because remember this is layers, and this is only the bottom layer. And it doesn't need to be all evened out, because as the layers build up, it'll smush out and sort of make a complete even layer. So a little bit on each one, just like we did with the sauce. This is where you get your hands dirty. Best part is you get to lick the cheese off afterwards. There we go. Okay, we've got our first layer done. Next, after you do your first layer, is you finish off with a little bit of shredded mozzarella. Sprinkle it right on there. Not too much. So remember, this is only the first layer of many. There we go. And then we take our next layer of the lasagna strips. You put it right on top. You smush it down a little bit so it's kind of flat. There you go. And basically you begin the entire process over again, just like you did the bottom layer. And since we have 15 strips, we're going to do 5 layers with 3 strips of lasagna on each layer, just like that, all the way up to the top. Alright, well, I'm just about ready to put the top layer onto the lasagna, but I wanted to let you know that I just preheated the oven to 350 degrees, and now we're going to get ready to finish off the lasagna. Okay, let me peel off my final layer. And unlike the bottom layers, this layer is not going to have any of the ricotta mixture on it. It's just going to have the pasta sauce, the mozzarella, and a generous helping of Parmesan cheese, which I believe belongs in every meal. So I'm sort of flattening it down to make sure everything underneath it gets nice and evened out. I'm only going to use a little bit of sauce on the top, not as much as I use in the bottom layers. Spread it around. Okay. And this layer is actually going to get a little crispy in the oven, and that's perfectly fine. That's what it should do. It sort of helps hold everything together. Just spreading it out, smoothing it down. Oops, a little much over there. Spreading it around. Alright, now we're going to put in our Parmesan. Just going to shake that in there right like that. There we go. Use as much as you want. If you don't like Parmesan cheese, well, you shouldn't be cooking this recipe, but you can use as little or as much as you want. There we go, and we're going to top it off with what's left of our mozzarella. Just going to sprinkle that on, and it's going to melt nicely. Alrighty. Alright, now that we're all done making the lasagna, before we pop it in the oven, we're going to cover it with tinfoil. And we're only going to leave the tinfoil on for the first 35 minutes that it's in the oven. After that, we're going to take it out of the oven, remove the tinfoil, and then put the lasagna back in the oven for another 10 minutes. And the tinfoil is just to make sure the lasagna doesn't get too burned and dry while it's in there for the first 35 minutes. Afterwards, we do want it a little bit crunchy on top, but that can wait until after it's baked most of the way. Alright, now that we're done, I'm going to pop this baby in the oven, and then we're going to eat it. Well, it's been 45 total minutes since we had the lasagna in the oven. We just pulled it out a couple minutes ago, and here's our finished product. Isn't it beautiful? I'm just going to cut a slice here to put on a plate so you see what it looks like. There we go. And the great part about having it with the layers is you can cut right along the layer. There we go. It's a little crunchy on the side. That's just what we want. And voila! Homemade lasagna. Absolutely delicious. I'm going to go eat it now. Enjoy.